بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the Day of Judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. It is said that on one occasion, a group of Jewish men approached the Prophet ﷺ in a somewhat confrontational way. That they engage each other back and forth and back and forth. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, who is standing with the Prophet at that time, he starts to feel internally agitated. And as the agitation reaches such a high level, he now responds back to those who are the cause of his agitation. But the Prophet, the entire time, remains without any sense of being perturbed. And as the conversation concludes, these men who were agitating Umar to such a place, they said that we recognize on this man Muhammad pretty much every sign of prophecy, every sign of prophethood, except one that was just forbearance, the ability to control himself in a moment of emotional onslaught. And so we pressed and we pushed and we pushed and we pressed to see how he would respond. And we found that he had that sign of prophethood as well. That amongst the characteristics of our Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam was that he was from amongst the most forbearant of individuals. When emotions pushed him and pressed him in all different ways, were those who were even immediately around him could not control the frustration, the agitation, and have it manifest itself in a place of emotional disarray. The Prophet was able to maintain a sense of calm. In Arabic, the word is halim. It denotes a certain sense of just composure. And to understand the nuance to it, especially where words get lost in translation and we at times don't utilize the language in that way day to day, so it's something that just goes from one part of us to the next without it really resonating. The root of halim can be understood by seeing what other words carry the same root in the Arabic language. So the word for intellect in Arabic, one of them is hilm. The word for dreams is ahlam. And the idea is that the person who is truly intellectual is in such a state of mindfulness that they have hilm, which is similar to halim, being composed and forbearant. Or one is in such a state of tranquility, without any agitation, that they can dream, they can have the ahlam that we're talking about. Because most of us, we don't really dream when we're not sleeping in a state of peacefulness. A baby, when he or she is nursed by its mother, where they suckle, is derived from the same root. And if any of you have ever had children in your life, your own, or you've seen others with children, you know that when that child is in a state of frenzy, in a state of internal chaos, and all they want is to be fed or nourished, the moment that child is lifted to be nursed, they get to a state of calm, a state of peace. And that is derived from the same root as the word halim. And so when we say that the Prophet is patient, it's not that the patience is what we denote patience to be. But just as a child would be thrown into a state of frenzy when their stomach is empty and all they know how to do when they want something is to cry and to be disruptive, the sense of tranquility that not comes only to the child but the parent who has provided the tranquility, that's the Prophet's default. That's who he is when he's even pushed to his worst of limits. May Allah make us forbearant the way our Prophet was. To recognize and understand how that's yielded as a reality. Not something that is just idealistic or something that is intangible, but how do I get to that place myself? The process of increasing in forbearance is to just simply be forbearant. There's not a magic recipe in the sense that somehow it's just going to pour into me. The way some of us believe that we raise our hands to the skies and faith will just drop in. But the action in and of itself is something that I'm meant to go through, the struggle, the reality, the tribulation, the trial. And at the conclusion of it, I'm yielded what it is that I'm told I would be given, having gone through the act in the first place. And so sometimes when the trial comes, when the tribulation comes, I can be thrown into a state of disarray. Can we have everyone please move up? And it can lead me in such a place of chaos that I don't know what it is that I'm supposed to do. But I can tell you is one of the things that we're not supposed to do is not do nothing. To just sit and believe that everything has suddenly come to a stop. But to allow for ourselves to be increased in what it is that we can be yielded, meeting the challenge internally and externally, inwardly and outwardly, with a sense of mindfulness. I have a 1-year-old son. His name is Kareem. Make dua for him. It's very different from my daughter Medina, who's here somewhere right now. Medina was Kareem's age. She's a little bit more poised, a little bit more dignified, for lack of better words. Kareem just runs and yells and likes to pick up things and throw them wherever he can. Kareem and I were walking together. He started walking, mashallah, when he was about 8 months old. And you could think that's really great, but it's not so great when you have to run after him since the time he was 8 months old. And we got to a place where here in Manhattan, everything's pretty flat in terms of rooms. And so as Kareem was learning to walk and crawl, he and I were walking together, and he came for the first time in his life to a ramp that took him from one elevated platform to another. And he had never seen one before. And so he's now going to it. He gets down on his knees and he puts one of his feet onto the ramp, lifts it back up, puts them both on, goes like this back and forth for a little bit of time. And then eventually he crawls down backwards and gets to the bottom part of the ramp. He looks at me with a big smile on his face. And I smile back at him. And I see him then go up and down that ramp a good 10, 20 times. And then when he got to a staircase for the first time in his life, he had no hesitancy in trying to run up that too. But the first time he did it, he had that hesitancy. And the courage that he yielded from going through the action could only come from actually going through it. Not having me pick him up and walk him down, or even just let him do it once and then take him away from it. Certain values that we seek to bear into our lives, they're yielded in the same way. Patience is not an on and off switch, nor is forbearance, nor is contentment, nor is truth or integrity or honesty, nor is faith, nor is iman. But the yielding of it at times necessitates going through the action that, if you meet it with a certain sense of composure, will give you what it is that you can only get if you go through the act in the first place. And Allah keeps throwing things at us. And we're left in a place asking why or what we're supposed to do, but then we don't do anything. When you and I dealt with the reality that is ISIS, that is still there, may Allah protect us from it and protect all people from it. They make us look bad. What are we supposed to do? This is the most difficult thing. They kill more Muslims than other people. He said it can't get worse for us than this. And then a few weeks ago, realities hit us when the election results were what they were. And now he's elected, and what's going to happen? And it can't get worse than this. The reality of certain hardship in our existence is not just so that hardship exists, but we start to think about collectively and together how we are going to meet it. And if we meet it with anything less than true forbearance, to be able to recognize with an air of patience what it means for us individually and then communally, Allah is going to keep giving us opportunities for growth, and we're going to have to decide whether we're going to take them on or not. We can be the person who picks up the child and says, "You're not going to learn how to walk." Or we can understand that going through that act will yield the strength and the courage to meet that challenge and other challenges that will come after. I had the blessing of taking a group of our students the last 3 days to North Dakota to stand with the indigenized populations that are there right now trying to protect the waters of that land. May Allah make things easy for all of them. We met another dozen or so people from California, Sheikh Dawood Yassin and some of his students from Zaytuna College, may Allah preserve them. And when we walked into that place, you can ask any of the students who went there, that what we thought we were going to walk into was very different than what it was that we actually met. That the chieftains of those tribes, they were calling people to a resistance of inequity and oppression through spirituality and prayer. That they gathered people together from very different backgrounds, very different walks of life. And they demonstrated a certain recognition, a certain forbearance, a certain centeredness, a balance that was critical in being able to understand how you can address certain challenges in very different ways than sometimes we might think. Our immediate mode is to use our hands as opposed to our voices. When we let the frustration and agitation build itself up, having no sense of outlets or how we can utilize our prayer actually as an outlet for real internal growth, for real spiritual growth, but also as a mechanism to remedy injustice that takes place in the world around us. And that's what these people were doing. They're poisoning themselves right now to live on the land where a cold, harsh winter is going to come at them. May Allah protect them from it. But motivated by principle, motivated by value. And it made me think and reflect, what is it that distracts me from being able to live in that frame? I took my daughter and I took my son with me. And people said, you're going to take babies to stand where there's protests happening? My children might not remember in a few months where it was that we took them. But when they're old enough and I sit down with them to say, when injustice came, we didn't just talk about it. We didn't just look at the pictures. But it was important for you to go and stand on that land, which will testify about your standing on it. And not only will it say what it was that we did when we stood on it, but it will say what was done to it as well. And this is from Quran. And where we could take you and stand with our brothers and sisters who are there, seeking to protect what it is that all of us should be protecting. It doesn't take that much sacrifice to actually get it done. But your internal can get thrown into a disarray if you don't have real hilm, man. And shaitan will prey on us in our most vulnerable states, saying, well, how can I leave from my job? Or what will people say if they know that I went there? What will I do when I actually get there? It's not sometimes about actively doing for the appeasement of your own nafs, but to just go and be in the spaces that your internal takes you, so that you understand the relationship between inward and outward, physical and metaphysical. And where there is inequity, you bring the presence of real justice, real love, real compassion, real hope. And so where these weeks are ahead of us, they can be in reaction to the weeks that came before. We can think truly of the ironies of the days that are around us. People throughout this country celebrated yesterday holidays commemorating actions that were based off of interactions of true native populations of this land and those who came from miles and miles away to just take the land from them. And now those same people who took that land are telling us that they don't want us in their land, when in reality it's not their land to begin with. And while they are commemorating traditions and norms that are rooted in the usurpment of lands of true indigenized populations, those same indigenized populations are fighting the same fight that they fought back then. But now nobody really knows that they're going through it. Our sense of centeredness has to understand the importance of our prayer. And you can't listen in a way that becomes dismissive, because now we're talking about people's lives. And so if you think your Fajr prayer is only for you, then you don't know what's going on with our brothers and sisters right now in North Dakota, whether they share faith with us or not. If you think your worship, your heart, your spirituality, your charity, your pilgrimage, any of those things is just for you, and you can decide when you want to and when you don't want to, and it's not a big deal if you don't, I will tell you it is a big deal. And to re-embrace those aspects of us and our tradition, to meet their inequity with real goodness. starts from taking a look inside and saying, what is it that you're going to give for the sake of those that are waiting for you to give it? The Prophet ﷺ, in his forbearance, in his being Halim, was able to always default to being merciful, compassionate, generous, loving, and a source of hope. And if the distractions of this dunya, the pursuit of the material, are not giving you the sense of satisfaction that you thought they would, man, then just for a few moments, try it a different way. Pray with your heart. Fast with your heart. Smile and give salam to the people who are sitting around you from your heart. With a deep conveyance of love that, my brother, my sister, I'm invoking Allah through His attribute of salam, asking Him, Ya salam, descend your salam upon the one who I am meeting with this greeting. If your inside is thrown off, your nafs is going to chase after what it's chasing after. We're going to see the perpetuation of certain things. I'm not God. I can't tell you what God has in plan, in specific. But I can tell you, the moments of agitation, they're going to keep coming. And they're not coming for anyone's benefit other than us, depending on how we meet them. And if we continue to meet them by pretending they don't exist, or we go about our routines without recognizing that indeed there is a world beyond this one, it's going to keep happening and keep happening. And may Allah never make us from amongst those who have to taste hunger in order to understand what it means to be hungry. Or to be those who do not have access to clean water in order to understand those who have real thirst. But take from what it is that you've been given and look and understand that none of it can ever compare to what, inshallah, you will yield in the world beyond this one. And if all you have to do is share a little bit of yourself so that somebody else's life is a little bit better, or push yourself through a little bit more struggle, or allow for yourself to just gain and increase in your own values, your own goodness, then do it. You're going to gain from it more than anybody else will. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. So a few announcements before we make dua. The building is going to be closed immediately after the completion of the Jummah prayer and throughout the rest of the weekend. So any of the different programs that we usually do on the weekend, they won't be happening this weekend. Inshallah, from Monday, we're going to be continuing on with our regular schedule. The sadaqah from today is going to be going to a fundraising campaign that the Islamic Center is hosting. This week and next week, we'll have the contributions going to that cause. We're raising money to help victims of domestic violence, in particular those who come from immigrant populations. The impetus for this was to help those who are undocumented, especially at this time, and to help those who are survivors within undocumented populations, men, children, women who found themselves as victims of domestic violence, physical abuse, sexual assault. Our students next Saturday on December 3rd are going to be hosting a dinner to raise funds towards that cause. Whatever you can give today, inshallah, will be appreciated. Next week as well would also be appreciated. If you can come to that dinner, please do come and show your support. Encourage your friends, your family members as well. We'll be sending out some online links also. But we want to do whatever it is that we can to help our brothers and sisters who are in need in that capacity. We have a sister in the community. Her name is Lina Turki. Who's been diagnosed with a form of cancer. She's undergoing treatment right now, so please keep her in your dua, inshallah, that Allah grant her a quick and easy recovery and a complete shifa, and make things easy for her and her loved ones at this time. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from any affliction, anxiety, or anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness, jealousy, animosity, or anger towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding, hearts that are filled with love, hearts that are filled with hope, hearts that are drawn towards those things that are good, hearts that are drawn towards truth and justice, hearts that are drawn towards generosity and compassion, hearts that are in a state of true tranquility, a state of true calm, as they are drawn towards your remembrance. For indeed in your remembrance, Ya Rabbi, do hearts find rest. Ya Allah, as the coldness of the winter comes upon us, make us from amongst those who bring benefit to the people who are in need in this city. Ya Allah, there are those who will call the streets their homes. They will sleep on the benches in the parks, and they will seek shelter from the inclement weather under the subway awnings and the awnings of stores. Ya Allah, elevate us and make us from amongst those who provide them with shelter and clothing, and help us to value every moment that we will live in the warmth of our homes, as our brothers and sisters deal with the coldness and harshness of the winter. Ya Allah, there are those who will have no food to eat or nothing to drink. They will find themselves in places where they have to make the difficult decisions as to which of their children they will feed and which they will see starve in front of their eyes. Ya Allah, grant them the best of meals in the world beyond this one, and help us, through us, feed them, Ya Rabbi, and make us from amongst those who are always grateful for every morsel of food that you have given to us. Ya Allah, those who find themselves dealing with any oppression or injustice, our brothers and sisters who stand for days and nights through the warmth of the summer and now going in through the frigid temperatures of these winters. Ya Allah, bring justice to those lands. Grant wisdom to the oppressors, those who are motivated by greed, those who are motivated by selfishness, those who just seek to have more and more and more of this dunya for themselves. Ya Allah, help them to taste what true contentment is, and to be satisfied with all that you have given to them so that they don't need to take from others. And Ya Allah, let us never replicate their example. Make us those who are not drawn towards just the simple acquisition of this world, but put into our hearts a deep love for that which is pleasing to you. Make us those who are always selfless and never selfish, those who are always sincere and never self-centered. Make us from amongst the generous. Make us from amongst those who give. Make us from amongst those who bring benefit to your creation. Those who understand the barakah, the blessing of sharing our meal with one, and where there is two of us that eat, to always invite a third. Ya Rabbi, make us from amongst those who bring goodness to your creation. And forgive us when we forget. Forgive us when we make mistakes. Forgive us when we are drawn towards the simple satisfaction of our egos, of our nafs. Protect us, Ya Rabb, always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وقيم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Straighten your line shoulder to shoulder, inshallah. Fill the gaps. Verily the formation of your sufuf is part of your salah. Keep in mind you're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so praise if this is your last prayer, inshallah. Also, please take the time to silence any electronic devices that you might have with you so as to not distract one another during the course of the prayer. May Allah accept from us. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر